Welcome back, everyone. I'm Nate Shear, and this is Mind Force, the podcast that explores how we grow, lead, and thrive in a chaotic world. Today, we'll be diving into the inner mechanics of how we think, believe, and create. Our guest will be helping us explore how the law of attraction isn't just wishful thinking, but a framework for intentional focus, and how the science and practicality of hypnotherapy in shifting mindset and behavior, and what it actually takes to manifest your best life and business beyond just vision boards and affirmations. Well, let's get to know her. Here she is. Who are you? What drives your passion? And what brought you into this line of work?
Well, hello, Nate. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm Victoria Gallagher, as you mentioned, and I would describe myself as a hypnotherapist, a personal development and business coach, a best-selling author, an entrepreneur, and the founder and creator of the Believe Hypnosis app. And I'm here because I'm on a mission to help people to really understand more about how their mind works, how powerful they are, how they can create anything that they want by just honing in and tapping into the power of their mind. I spent the last over 25 years teaching people this and creating a huge library of hypnotherapy tools and writing books and doing seminars and all that. So, I just, I like to also dispel the myths about, hypnotherapy and what that is and law of attraction and what that is, that, it's practical, not magical and mystical like a lot of people think. And so that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. And just out of curiosity, I like to ask, where in the world are you calling from?
I'm in, it's not so sunny today, but Phoenix, Arizona, where it's going to be, about 100 degrees plus for the next few months.
That's a hot one. Yeah, I threw the question in because it was so interesting. Saw Africa, Australia,
Oh,
Israel, lots of different places. And now I'm like, it's kind of curious. Now I got to figure out where everyone's coming from. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're joining us. My first question, you started to allude to it, but I think this is probably the most interesting way to start the conversation is, what's the most common myth about hypnotherapy? I think a lot of people are like, that sounds a little witch doctor or sounds a little, a little crazy, a little crunchy, fill in the verb and whatnot. But what is the common myth, and what do you think, or what would you like people to understand to correct that myth?
One of the common myths, it's kind of like twofold. One of them is that you give up control over your mind, like that you're turning over control over to somebody else who has control over your mind, like a hypnotherapist or the hypnotist. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that I can't be hypnotized, which really harkens back to the whole, like, you're giving up control. And really, what I'd like people to understand about it is that it is, number one, it's something you actually do multiple times a day naturally without even really realizing it. You're actually going into a trance, when you're watching TV, watching a movie, reading a book, driving down the highway and you miss your your turn. There's all these little moments where we're actually hypnotized, and we have been getting hypnotized our whole lives to believe certain things, whether they're just about the world at large, other people, and ourselves. And so all of that, came into our subconscious mind with us kind of letting our guard down, if you will, all the limiting beliefs, the things that we believe that we can't do, or, all the limiting beliefs, they came in through, being in kind of some kind of a trance, but really, hypnotherapy is about tapping into your own subconscious mind and letting go. Letting go not meaning giving up control, but letting go meaning allowing your subconscious mind to open so that you can plant new suggestions, new ideas, new beliefs, new empowering beliefs to allow you to be all that you were meant to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I got two questions. One's a little more silly, and I think the second one's probably a little bit more serious. So, how true is, turning to a chicken on stage? Is that accurate?
Well, so that's stage hypnosis, which is a little different than it's where a lot of people get their first introduction, to be honest, to just the power of the mind and what kinds of things that you can do. And of course, that's for entertainment. And can a hypnotist turn you into a chicken? When you're in that environment, usually they are picking the people that are the quickest and easiest to hypnotize. And they do that through a few little suggestibility tests and things that they do out in the audience. And the fact that you're even volunteering to go on stage is like already a certain level of hypnotizability. So, yeah, when you go up there, you go into a certain place in your mind where you can be given suggestions to believe certain silly things about yourself. A lot of times, sometimes people are just kind of going along with it. They're it's really about tapping into your imagination and just kind of allowing yourself to go with the suggestions. Do those people actually believe that they are chickens? Probably not. They're just really good at using their imagination, and some people are better than others at that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hopefully not offensive. Didn't mean it that way at all. So hopefully that's
No,
good.
no, no. I get it all the time. It is probably one of the biggest myths too. So you've
Yeah,
clarified that.
that's funny. So I am a hospital administrator by trade. So admin, I don't know as much about the clinical side of the house, but I have seen oh boy, I can't think of the acronym right now, but the bouncing light. Oh boy, I can't think of what it's called, but
Rapid eye
could
movement or
yeah, where it bounces from left to right and it helps like unlock. Do you do anything in that realm, or could you, kind of walk through the different options that are out there for hypnotherapy, or expand on maybe that?
So I don't actually do any kind of rapid eye movement type of work. That's actually a completely separate type of it's like kind of falls under the EMDR training, so yeah, that's just kind of like completely out of my realm.
Okay. So what's the acronym EMRD? Eye movement rapid?
See, I move is like, gosh, you've like really got me because it's just kind of like a completely different study altogether. It sort of does, I mean, a lot of hypnotherapists will get certified in the CMDR and I'm familiar with it, but it's like not in my wheelhouse at all.
Well, that's perfectly fine. I was just curious, but we'll move on. Before we get into your three main pillars, I wanted to
Yeah.
see if you had a question for me.
Yeah. So let's see. If I was to hand you a magic microphone you'd have the ability to just implant a suggestion, like a hypnotic suggestion, into all of your listeners' minds right now, what would you say into that microphone?
I think I would say think of others, because I think a lot of things in this world, if we, think of the other person, if we're more aware of our surroundings and how our actions and things impact other people, I think the world would be a much better place. I'm active duty military, so I move around a lot and do a lot of different things. So currently in the UK, but a year ago I was in Japan. And in Japan, you can see the difference on how people interact and, how they're orderly and stand in line and they're aware of other people. It felt to a greater extent. And maybe that's like rules and it's a completely different culture, of course. But I felt like a lot of it was, how they ride the train and how they're quiet and standing in lines. And there's a lot of different things, but that's what I would say is the ability to think about others. I know we have a lot of catchphrases and buzzwords like put yourself in other people's shoes and different things, but I don't think we do it that often. So if we could think of others and have that empathy and that connection, I think the world would be a much better place.
I
What would
agree
you
with
say?
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I absolutely believe in that. I think too, we're all connected really at the core of it all. So I think that when you're thinking of others, I mean, it's really just, to me, it's like no different than thinking of your right hand versus thinking of your left hand. It's like, why would you not think of your, other hand? And so it's just, and you get back what you put out. And so I think when you think of others, it all comes back to you anyway. So you might as well just, be a good person and be thoughtful and, and care about, helping, I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I got into this business, is because I really wanted to help other people to be all that they could be and help them overcome their limitations.
And I think it's so important for like arguments and things like that. Like you'd probably have less arguments and they're going to be shorter. And, there's so many different things if you're able to have that empathy, check on the other side and then connect. Cause I don't think anyone, there are some people, I'm sure, narcissists and other things, but most people don't want to hurt other people. They just, don't realize what's happening. And so if you can see it from the other side, I think it would improve just so many lives across the board on, silly things at the house and kids and, a whole bunch of different things. But we'll,
Absolutely.
we'll move
Yeah.
into your first pillar, which is the law of attraction. When did you first encounter the law of attraction? Was there a moment that made you that true believer?
There's been many little moments that I could harken back to. I always kind of lately I've been going back to all the way in first grade when I saw the sixth graders in school putting on The Wizard of Oz. And I loved singing, and I saw them putting on the play, and it was something that they did every year. So I made it my intention that I would play Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz when I got into sixth grade. And so every year, that would happen. And I would just see myself up there, playing Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and year after year. And then finally, sixth grade, play came along. I was in sixth grade and I auditioned. And what was interesting, this is just a lesson in like not giving up on your dreams, even if it doesn't look like it's happening, because I came in second, like as the understudy. So I would be Dorothy if the person who did get chosen, wasn't available for whatever reason. And so I continued to just, hold the faith and just, like whatever reason, I just continued to practice and sing and practice the lines and everything. And literally like a couple of days before the play, I got the call that I needed to do it because she wasn't available. She got the flu or something happened. And so I ended up playing Dorothy. And, it's just like from that moment on, I just knew I could do anything. I just knew that. And I didn't know at that time, I didn't call that the law of attraction. But when I finally started realizing there was this, law of attraction, it was much later in life. It was after, in my 20s, taking a lot of personal development seminars and reading a lot of books. And I really got into personal growth. And, they said, to think is to create. That was the line that they really were, and I knew that. I knew that from all the experiences that I had had, that whenever I believed in something with all my heart and put my intention out there and just made a commitment to it, things would line up to somehow allow that to happen. And so that I knew even well before The Secret came out and people started talking about the law of attraction, I knew that to think is to create. I could always tap into the power of my mind and I could create whatever it was that I believed in, I could conceive in. Think and Grow Rich was just another perfect example of a book that teaches you to tap into the power of your mind. And I just, I knew from a very, very early age, it was just continuing to get confirmation after confirmation that this really does exist.
Yeah, that makes sense. On this show, I want to get practical things. I think a lot of books that I've read and whatnot has hypotheticals or have goals and things like that. And obviously we know those. But for this particular one, the law of attraction, how do you use it in a practical daily way?
Yeah, well, I wrote the book Practical Law of Attraction. So that's the whole premise of my teachings, is to make it practical because it is actually very much common sense. So essentially, my practical way of explaining it is there are 8 manifesting conditions. You have your desire, your thought, your imagination or visualization, you have beliefs, you have your emotion or vibration, you have creative attraction, which is really your kind of connection to your intuition and the, world around you. And then you have your inspired action, and then you have your actual the manifestation and the gratitude that you have around that. So it really begins with that clear desire, having a very clear knowing what you want. I think it's easier said than done, and it sounds like a really simple thing. It's like, oh, I know what I want. I want this. I want that. I want that. But people are typically very flippant, or they're very like, they'll say that they want something, but they don't sincerely want that, or they want it because they believe that that's what they're supposed to want. And so it really does start with this having this crystal clarity. Like, if you are the type of person, that you say, okay, I want this, but I've tried the law of attraction or hypnosis or whatever it is for 30 days and it didn't work. So if you're just giving up on that, well, that's a pretty good sign that you don't really want that, because why would you give up on something that's like so important to you? And once you've really identified what you want, it's lining up with all those other conditions, getting your thoughts, completely in alignment with what you do want, rather than most people think about, they know what they don't want, they complain, they judge, they have these thoughts that, tell them like, that they can't have what they want, or they focus on how it's not working, or all of the nots, don'ts, and no's. So you want to catch those ideas that come into your mind, and you want to flip those back to like, well, what do I want? And, having the ability to imagine is huge. Because I mean, like even Einstein said, imagination is everything. So, just being able to tap into that creativity, because you may not know exactly how you're going to manifest something, but the more you're able to really tap into your imagination and allow yourself to, have new ideas and be open to new ideas and ways that things can happen, the more likely you're going to be able to stumble upon something that's going to cause that manifestation to come about. So that's essentially how I like to explain it. Of course, it is about getting the belief, and that's where the hypnotherapy really comes in, is getting yourself to truly believe that this thing is going to happen. If you're sitting there just doubting and skeptical about it, chances are, you're not going to take the actions that are going to bring that about. And then, of course, taking action is like, I mean, that's you. It goes without saying, you absolutely have to take action on anything that you want to, manifest. And that's where a lot of people kind of, get into that airy fairy mystical. It's like, oh, I'm just going to sit in my, beanbag chair and meditate, and, voila, the things are going to just pop up. And it's not really like that. There is action involved.
Things definitely take action and effort. I'm curious on the like goal setting and getting down to what people really want, because I've had a bunch of different people on the show and it seems like it's come up in numerous different fields from, completely different guests and things like that. It's interesting because from the outside world or the world in general, like success is cars and money and all these things, but like that's not really, what makes you happy and whatnot. So is there trends or have you seen like how do people get to the thing that they actually want, not that everyone seems to want for them?
It's such a good question. And I think the where I usually have people focus first is think about all the things that you're complaining about. So I actually have them for 5 minutes take a notepad out and just, you have like 5 minutes to just complain about everything that's going on in your life, in the world, whatever. And so you just, free flow and free write. And usually people are so much better at articulating what they don't like and what they don't want. But that's a clue. If something is bothering you so much, that is a clue of what it is that you actually do want. So then I'll have them take all those complaints and I'll have them now come up with a list of preferences. So what would you like instead of this? And, usually, it's about 10 or 20 things, depending on how quickly, somebody thinks and operates in that situation. And they'll come up with, 20, things. And then we'll pinpoint it down to like, I'll have them actually circle some of the words out of their preferences. And so, once they've circled a few of those words, we'll make like a sentence out of that whole process, and that usually, that going through that little process, that usually helps them identify and pinpoint exactly what it is that they want. Now, being that I work primarily with business owners and entrepreneurs, and sometimes, people will come to me because they want to manifest love or their soulmate or get married or lose weight, things like that. But generally speaking, the people that I work with are entrepreneurs. And the common thing that everyone seems to want, or the ones that come to me at least that I've attracted, are people that they just want to make a difference in the world. And that is the thing that at the end of the day, people think that they want money. Well, it's like, why do you want money? What is it that you would do if you had a lot of money? Well, usually they would be more giving. They would rescue children or animals. They would, help other people. They would be better coaches. They would invest in marketing. They would do all the things that help them to be a better person so that they can help other people be better. And so that's typically, it's like at the end of the day, we all just kind of want to be happy. And, all the things that we think are going to make us happy, what we're going for those things because we think they're going to make us happy, but they don't. It really, happiness comes first. And when you are happy, when you are feeling good, when you are feeling the way that you think those things are going to make you feel, you're in a much better place to now attract those things naturally, not because you're focused on those things, because you're focused on just being the person that you were meant to be anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful. I find it funny too because it reminds me of like Yelp or any of like the review sites. Like people will go and destroy the restaurant and say it's like the worst place I've ever eaten, but like rarely do you come back and like, oh, I enjoyed my food and it was a good time. Like you're passionate about the negative. So to like your point, like we can complain all day. Like we'll word vomit a whole thing of, complaints that we have. But that's interesting. I like the actionable tip to be able to start with at least a starting point, if that's where the free flowing information is coming from, then start from that and then kind of turn it over. The other part that I find so interesting is, like I said, all different guests have talked about it and they all come back to helping others and being connected and being part of, the solution rather than the problem and taking care of others. Like they all, a lot of them believed at the beginning it was the cars and the money and the house. And it's like, oh, it's raising a family. It's, running a nonprofit. It's, fill in the blank. And it just always comes back to that. But it feels like when you tell younger people, like, they don't really like, oh, yeah, right. It's about money. It's, looking cool and whatnot. It's something I guess you can't really hear from the outside. You have to I guess, live it and understand like that really what it is. It's not about the titles and the promotions and things like that. Like maybe those come along the way. Maybe those, like you said, get you to a place where you can help out more. You're in the right position to help others. But the true joy is, helping people along the way. That's good
Yeah,
stuff. Well, sorry.
it's so true. I mean, and society, like that's what I was alluding to. It's like, not what other people tell you that you want. And because society tells you, based on all the commercials that you see, based on, like just, television, movies, the life of luxury, like this is good. This is what you should have. And it's not to say that those things are bad. It's just that going for those things, making those the end goal because you think that those things are going to make you happy. Most people end up with those things are not really happy because they didn't focus on their being and who they really are first. And so just because you have a lot of money or you have the ability to buy a lot of things, that doesn't make you happy. But, it's like, I don't want to say that wanting those things is bad. It's just making that your only goal and your only focus without first focusing inward and on what you truly, truly want. And it requires a level of self-understanding and self-awareness that is just not taught out there in society. We're taught more is better.
Yeah, I've mentioned a couple times on the show, like we're into fast food and you can Google an answer in, seconds and you can get anything you want, like 2 days to Amazon. I think same day at this point, like everything's faster and things like that. But we don't do as much like self-reflection. I think that's where it comes from. Like the why is the important part of that. Like you do want the title, promotion, or the money, maybe to help others and expand and do other things. Like if that's your why, then that's fine. But like you said, if it's the why to put a new nameplate on your desk, like that's probably not the right reason to do that. You'll have it, but you'll be kind of empty after you put it down on your desk and then the next day, like, then what? So I think the why is really the core of that one.
It
Your
is.
next pillar is hypnotherapy and subconscious work. So we talked
Yeah.
a little bit about what it's not and what it is. How can people safely use hypnotherapy or any similar tools at home to begin rewiring their limiting beliefs?
Yeah, so it really starts with, I believe, understanding a little bit about what happens in hypnosis and like what it actually is. So it's really a conversation between you have your conscious mind, which is like everything on the surface. It's everything that you are aware of right now. Like you're aware of me and having this conversation. You're aware of the air around you, all of the things that you are aware of and processing. But your subconscious mind is basically everything that you're unaware of, meaning it's subconscious. So it's really literal. It's really literal. So your conscious is like everything you're consciously aware of. Your subconscious is all the other stuff, which is like 0.9% of your mind because you're not aware right now of the belief that you have that came into your awareness back when you were 5 years old and your parents told you that you were never going to amount to anything or that money is the root of all evils or that there are no good, people in the world or, whatever, or just the way you're fed all these limiting beliefs throughout your whole life. You're not aware of those things, but they are really running the show. They're really the thing that is causing you to think the way that you think and feel the way that you feel and act or not act the way that you do. And so it's a very powerful part of your mind. It's where your emotions are, all of your memories, all of your beliefs. And so it's really important to understand how these two minds work together and how you enter hypnotherapy is really simple. You just really relax, focus on like your breathing, have an intention on what it is that you want to do when you go into hypnosis, which is maybe to change this particular belief that you may have about yourself, your money stories, your self-worth, your belief about what is actually possible for you to achieve. Maybe it's a belief about love or a belief about your health or your ability to get into the best shape. So you have an intention, You allow your, conscious mind to relax so that your subconscious mind can receive the new information that you want to plant in to it. And, I make that actually very easy for people because I've created an app with like over 1,000 different sessions on every topic imaginable, mostly in the success realm and helping entrepreneurs because that's my target, that audience. Those are the people that typically come to me. But you just can listen to these guided hypnosis sessions and just allow them to do the work. So you're not having to sit there and keep your conscious mind active and, and really having to think or, keeping yourself at that certain level help you to stay at the right level of mind and help you to, reprogram your mind. And, over time, over a 21, 30, day period of time, you will begin to create new pathways in your mind to think differently, to see yourself different, to feel different. And it's, that's one of the myths is that, like you can just change in an instant. And some people do. That does happen, but it's very rare. It's the exception, not the rule. The rule is, it does, I mean, you didn't get these beliefs overnight. So to change those beliefs, it is going to take a little bit of intentional repetition. And repetition is really the key to making hypnosis work.
It's funny how that stuff is so deep rooted too. Like, I guess it's more on the funny side, but I remember growing up, like my mom always thought that guacamole was disgusting. And I guess she said it enough or whatnot. And so I remember growing up, and it wasn't until I was like 16 or 18, or I think I'd already like left the house and everything. And then I tried it and I was like, this stuff is amazing. But like, I always assumed it was bad and I'd never even tried it. But like, oh no, I don't want that. And like, it built up enough for like, oh, that must not be good, I guess. Like, it looks kind of goofy. It's a bunch of stuff mixed together. I'm like, oh, avocado and salsa. Like, I love both of those things. So this is amazing. I'm curious. Earlier, you had mentioned that one of the big hesitations is not wanting to lose control, which I feel like that's probably a big American thing. Like, we want to drive the car and, be in the driver's seat and things like that. What would you say are other hesitations where people don't want to jump into this?
Well, I would say one of the things is they're afraid that they're going to give up a lot of their secrets. That they're gonna that the hypnotist is going to come in and find out things that they don't want to know, or even on their own. I mean, I actually remember when I was first learning how to meditate way back when I was 18, and all you had to do was just close your eyes and tune in and listen. And there was just something about doing that, even for me way back then, that there was a little hesitation because I was afraid. I had this fear that I would tap into something in my mind that I didn't want to know. So I think, and then, really at the end of the day, I think it is fear of change. Most people, you get into a comfort zone of being the way that you are because you know this way, even if it's not ideal, even if it's not exactly as powerful as you can be, but you're comfortable with it. When you change, there's all kinds of different it's like the fear of the unknown. Like, who am I going to be? What kind of new responsibilities are going to come with this change? And so I think it's fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of, revealing too much about yourself, fear that even that it won't work. That you'll, do all this work, you'll take this time and you won't get anything out of it, that you're not, that you don't have the ability to change. But, the truth of the matter is we are changing, our cells are changing, we're receiving new information all the time. We are not the same person that we were last week, last month, last year. So we are going to change whether we take control over that change or not. It's just a matter of like, this actually gives you more control, which is the opposite of what people are afraid of, is losing control. It actually gives you more control over choosing who you want to become.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm glad you were able to dispel a lot of those. One of my favorite things on the show is stories. I feel like, back to caveman days and all those other things, like that's how we convey information through stories and it helps us connect and relate to other things. So I'm curious, without giving out any information, because that's not the intent, but what's one transformation that you've seen in this subconscious work that you've done that just truly amazed you?
Well, one of my favorites was this lady that I worked with, and we worked together very sporadically. But I created a custom program for her based on the fact that she wanted to. She wanted a huge life transformation. She was working in corporate America. She lived in Chicago, and she wanted to move to London. She wanted to buy a house there, and she wanted to become a life coach. And it was a lot. Normally, I will say, like, let's just focus on one of those things. But, against my better judgment, I went ahead and, created this whole program for her. We also did about 4 in-person sessions. Well, then I didn't hear from her for about a year. And then her name came up in a conversation. One of my clients just happened to know her, and it was like, whoa. And it caused me to like reach out to her. I'm like, hey, how's it going? I haven't heard from you. And she's like, well, I'm here in London. I'm getting ready to close on my house. And was just crazy.
That's awesome. Some amazing stories. I always tell my son, if you believe you can achieve, he thinks it's a little cheesy, but gotta have some, mantras. Your final pillar is manifesting your best life and business. What do you think the biggest difference between those who manifest effectively and those who stay stuck?
Well, I would say the biggest thing that goes into effective manifestation is consistency, really sticking to it. And that consistency, it encompasses all the other manifesting conditions, being clear. So many people, they shift their focus too many times. And I've been guilty of this too. And, in business, for example, you're an entrepreneur. A lot of times, you'll have multiple talents and, you work on something for a little while and then you're not seeing the fruits of your labor yet. And so then you'll say, well, let's see what else I can do. Let's see if I can throw something else out there and see if that sticks. And, that's not manifesting. That's just hoping and wishing. And, so it really comes back to that clarity, that consistency, the confidence, the belief. You're not hoping, you're not waiting, you are being. Like when I was manifesting my soulmate, um, it was like, who do I need to be? How do, in order to be the person that is right for the one that's in my mind? And, the same thing with business. Who do I need to be such that, my book becomes a #1 bestseller so that I am able to, get on stage and speak and transform people's lives? Who do I need to be? And that being, from that being, you are going to, be acting from that place. And so all the things that, really make up manifesting, the thoughts, the beliefs, the actions, the vibration, they all really come from consistently being the person who is available for that of whatever you want to call it, success, love, the money, the whatever it is that you're going for. It really comes from who you are.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm definitely in that boat, I think. I was an air traffic controller, so I told airplanes not to hit each other. Then I went into contracting, and so I cut contracts on behalf of the government. And now I work in a hospital, so, all over the board, all sorts of different things. Airplanes, money, spending money, hospital administration. It's been wild. Well, finally, I'd like to try to bring it all together. So, if you could leave our audience with one practice to begin transforming their mindset today, what would it be?
Well, I would say the one thing that you can do to bring it all together would be to, number one, just know what you want. I keep hearkening back to just having that clarity and taking action steps toward that every single day, and an action step, maybe you don't know what action to take. So if you don't know what action to take, you just kind of sit down and you get in touch with your inner mind, who knows what actions to take. Sometimes you don't hear the actions to take because maybe you're afraid and, maybe it might be something uncomfortable for you to do. A lot of times, the more uncomfortable those actions are for you to take, tell you that those are actually the right actions to take, because those are the ones that are going to help you to grow. Because after all, at the end of the day, I really think all these things are all about personal growth. They're all about becoming in alignment with the person that you're meant to become, and realizing that those goals, those dreams, those desires, everything that you want, it's really there as a dangling carrot, causing you to become the person who's in alignment with having that. Doing the smallest infinitesimally small action each day that just helps you to become more of who you were meant to be. I would say that's probably my greatest thing. Just what can I do to become better, to be an inspiration, to motivate myself? What can I do to be that person? And just thinking along those lines each and every day, eventually you will achieve that success. You will achieve whatever it is that you dream about and that you want to become.
I love that you say uncomfortable too. Like, I love the phrase be comfortable in the uncomfortable, because you have to get outside of the comfort zone and step out and leap of faith. And there's a lot of uncertainty and things like that, but you just never know if you never take the first step. So, and get those running shoes out, put them by the front door, and, take that first step. Well, Victoria, this was an energizing and powerful conversation. Thank you so much for your insight and your heart. Before we wrap up, where can listeners connect with you, and where should they start if they're curious about diving a little deeper?
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. And for the listeners who want to learn how to become more and get out of their comfort zone and achieve their goals, they can connect with me at my website, victoria@gallagher.com. Also, of course, you can find the Believe app in the app stores or at believehypnosis.app. And you can also find lots of manifestation and hypnosis courses at Personal Growth Club. Start with something simple like one of the free sessions inside my app, and just watch what happens as you begin to align your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions, and start to create real change in your life.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Victoria, for coming out. To everyone out there, if you loved today's episode, please leave a review, share it with a friend, and let us know your favorite takeaway. I'm Nate Shear. We'll see you next time on Mind Force. I love you all. See ya.